Hello, this is Dr. Mears. Today we are going to be learning about measures of dispersion, which is spread. So you should have your video paper in front of you. Here we go. Measures of dispersion measures how spread out the data is. This is also called measures of variability. So if you take a statistics class in college, you're going to be seeing measures of variability and measures of dispersion used interchangeably. But they're both for the same thing, which is how spread out the data is. There are three types of measures of dispersion. The first type is range, and that's what you're all used to. That's the first one that we actually learn about, and that actually shows the full spread of the data. It's the maximum minus the minimum, and you actually have to subtract the two numbers to find the range. Don't just leave it as subtraction. You have to use your calculator and subtract those two numbers. The range you cannot find on the graphing calculator. It will give you the minimum and the maximum, but it won't give you the range. You're going to actually have to do that on your own. The second one is known as the interquartile range, and you've seen this before. You know how to calculate it, but you didn't know what it means. So here's what it means. It measures the range of the middle 50% of the data. It is that box on the box plot. So remember we have this box here, and it's Q1 to Q3. So this box is that middle 50%. So IQR is Q3 minus Q1, and again, you have to subtract the two numbers to find the IQR. Here's the big thing that we're going to be actually using with our example. The IQR uses median as the measure of center, because going back to the box plot, this is the median. It also has to do with the skewness of data. If data is right skewed or left skewed, we tend to use a box plot rather than any other types of visual representation. The next one, which is the last one, is standard deviation. That measures the typical distance of the values from the mean. Now, standard deviation is a big concept. You've probably heard about it in science. We are going to investigate standard deviation more deeply, but not today. What I want you to know about today is that it measures the distance from the mean, which means it uses the mean as its measure of center. And that's because usually when we do standard deviation, we're looking at a symmetric graph. And a symmetric graph looks like this, where the mean and median are equal. That's actually a terrible symmetric graph. It's that bell curve that you see. That's a little bit better. Okay, not that long of a tail. All right. So what we have to do to calculate all of this, well, besides the range will give you the min and the max. But we have to use one variable statistics, and you know how to do that. You have that graphing calculator paper. You should be practicing this anyway, so it should come second nature. The IB notation for standard deviation is S sub n. That's what you're going to see in the IB books. That's what you're going to see in the IB paper 1 and paper 2. When you use your graphing calculator, you're going to be seeing both of these. The one that you pick out to write down is sigma sub x. This is lowercase Greek letter sigma. This is the one that you choose. That's the one that the IB book says that it wants you to write down when it asks you for standard deviation. So let's go on to our example. Our example is on the next page. It says below are the data from 25 randomly selected people. You've seen this data before. Hopefully it's still entered in your calculator. This actually would have been entered as L1 in your calculator. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the mean standard deviation, almost working backwards from the notes that I just gave you. So we're going to be doing number 3 first here. And then we're going to be finding the range, which is the overall, and then we're going to be finding the median and the interquartile. And look how I laid this out on the notes. The median and the interquartile are next to each other because they go together. And standard deviation and mean are next to each other because they go together. And the one in the middle is range because that's just overall. Okay, enough moving around. So let's go. I want you to input, if it's not already done, all of the data values into your L1. And when you do that, you run your one variable statistics, and you're going to find certain symbols. The first symbol, hopefully that you know, no, that's not the paper I wanted to show you. The first symbol is going to be that X bar, and that's the first number that you actually see. And that's the mean. So 70.64 tex. Give me the decimal, please. We will talk about how to round, but I do want that decimal. Don't round it right away. I need to see all of the decimals there. We are going to go to 3 significant figures, but we'll be talking about more about that in class. Okay, so what does it mean? We have to tell what it means in context. Well, it's the average number of texts sent yesterday is 70.64, and that's it. Okay, from there, now we have our measure of center. We can tell what our spread is. So in your calculator, if you look a couple lines down, you're going to see sigma sub x is 77.05 texts. This is one standard deviation from the mean measures 77.05 texts. We're actually going to be finding one standard deviation, two standard deviations, and three. But the important thing now to learn is what symbol it is, where to find it, and then how to write the sentence with one standard deviation. So one standard deviation from the mean measures 77.05 texts. Okay, next is range. Range is max minus min, 300 minus 0, which is 300. And that is the full spread of the number of texts sent yesterday is 300. So it spans 300 texts from 0 to 300. But remember, subtract them. Okay, next is median and interquartile range. And so I'm just going to show you the median right now, not to overwhelm you. Here we go. So the median is denoted by MED, so you have to scroll down in your calculator. That's 50 texts. And please notice, I am attaching units, texts, to all of these. You would notice at the mean, text, standard deviation, text, median, text, range, let's put in text. So I am attaching units. Please remember all of your units because they are points. All right, what does the median mean? It's the midpoint number of the text, which is 50. You can also write it as the median is 50 texts. To go deeper though, and the real hitting home on what median is, half of the number of texts are sent are below 50 and half are above. That's that good interpretation of median. And lastly, IQR. IQR is Q3 minus Q1, which you'll see 100 minus 10, which is 90 texts. And that's the middle 50% of the text sent yesterday has a spread of 90 texts. And please notice, back on your notes, I say all of these things. Measures the typical distance from the mean. Measures the range of the middle 50% of the data. Shows the full spread of the data. So I just used my definition to be able to put my numbers into context to give a good interpretation of the data. Now I want you to try. So you will find that next sheet that you will see has this attached to it, and it says now you try. This hopefully maybe should be in your calculator as L2. So when you're running a one variable statistics, please remember to push second 2 so that you get L2 and not 1. Unless you want to erase your L1 and enter data all over again, you can, but I find that it helps just to do one in one list and one in the other. So I would do a one variable stat on L2, and I would put this data into L2. Please try that. You will also see that the answer key is attached to your packet. And this has been measures of dispersion, also known as measures of variability, which ultimately is spread. I hope this helped. Good luck.